The glow of the laptop felt wrong, like it carried a secret meant to destroy Marcus forever. A strange payment alert blinked on the screen, linked to a platform he had never heard before. His hands trembled as he opened the account and saw familiar shadows tied cruelly to Olivia. Every breath grew heavier, while silence pressed around him like a tightening vice of dread. He scrolled faster, hoping it was a mistake, knowing deep down it could not be. A cold truth settled in, as realization cut sharper than any spoken betrayal. The woman he trusted most had crossed a line he never imagined possible. Memories of quiet laughter and shared nights twisted into something painfully unfamiliar. Questions burned in his mind, but answers felt darker than the empty room. And in that chilling moment, his world tilted toward an irreversible emotional storm. Marcus stared at the screen, feeling his chest tighten as disbelief clawed at his fragile sense of reality. He clicked through the account again, praying the images would vanish like a horrible dream fatting at dawn. Every second confirmed the unthinkable truth that Olivia had betrayed his trust in the most brutal way. He walked to the living room, heart pounding, and found her sitting calmly on the couch. His voice shook as he asked why his private life had become a product for strangers to consume. Olivia's eyes widened, then quickly masked themselves with practiced composure and forced appeals. She claimed it was never meant to hurt him, and spoke of bills and fear of losing stability. Marcus felt anger rise, but beneath it lingered a deep and aching sense of personal violation. He demanded honesty, refusing to accept excuses wrapped in fake tears and trembling promises. Olivia tried to explain it as survival, yet every word felt colder than the last. He reminded her that consent was never given, and trust was never offered for sale. Silence filled the space between them like a storm cloud heavy with unshed thunder. Marcus watched her avoid his eyes, sensing guilt mixed with stubborn defiance. He asked how long it had been happening, and her hesitation answered before her voice. The revelation spread through him like ice, numbing yet painfully sharp in its reach. He felt memories shatter as every shared smile now carried a bitter distortion. Olivia whispered that she thought he would never discover the truth. That admission struck harder than any argument they had ever shared before. Marcus realized the depth of deception extended far beyond a moment of weakness. He struggled to balance rage with the sorrow of what he once believed was love. He stepped back, creating distance as if breath itself had become unsafe near her. His words turned firm as he told her she must leave his home immediately. Olivia pleaded, claiming regret and promising change with desperate urgency. Marcus remained unmoved, feeling the final thread of trust snap without mercy. He watched her pack silently, each movement echoing the collapse of their life. The closing door sounded louder than any scream that could have escaped his lips. He stood alone, surrounded by memories that suddenly felt foreign and corrupted. His reflection stared back, revealing a man broken by ruthless betrayal. He tried to steady his breathing, but fear kept flooding his thoughts. Questions of dignity and justice began to replace the initial shock. He knew this moment would forever change the path of his existence. The silence that remained only deepened the weight of his decision. His loyalty had been shattered, leaving no space for forgiveness. Every detail replayed in his mind, with cruel and relentless clarity. He realized the confrontation was only the beginning of a darker fight ahead. The trust he once offered freely was now buried beneath layers of pain. Marcus understood that love without respect could never survive such betrayal. And in that tense stillness, his resolve began to harden like steel. He would no longer be silent, and he would no longer be controlled. Marcus spent the night gathering evidence with shaking hands and a mind refusing to rest. He saved every image, every transaction detail, and every trace of the account activity. Each click felt like reopening a wound that refused to close or soften. At sunrise, He contacted a lawyer known for handling complex privacy violation cases. The consultation felt heavy but necessary, like stepping into a battlefield of truth. Marcus explained everything with controlled urgency and quiet desperation in his tone. The lawyer listened carefully, outlining options and the legal gravity of the situation. He learned that what happened was a serious breach of consent and personal rights. A formal request was prepared to remove all content from the platform immediately. Marcus signed the papers knowing this was only the first step of a long journey. He then filed an official report with the local police department that same day. The process required detailed statements and repeated exposure to painful facts. Each form forced him to relive the betrayal with suffocating intensity and focus. Yet he refused to retreat, determined to reclaim control over his own dignity. His phone buzzed constantly, with emails from legal teams and platform administrators. He followed each instruction carefully, documenting every action and response. Marcus felt a strange mix of fear and strength growing within his tired heart. He knew silence would only empower the damage done to him. The law now stood as his shield against the humiliation he never consented to bear. Officers assured him the case would be taken seriously and handled with care. Still, uncertainty lingered in every quiet moment between official updates. He wondered how far the damage had already spread across unseen audiences. Thoughts of exposure haunted him like shadows he could not outrun. Despite the fear, his resolve never loosened its grip. He attended another meeting to discuss restraining options and protective measures. Each legal term sounded cold, yet necessary to restore his sense of power. Marcus refused to let shame define his answer to this violation. He understood that justice required patience and unwavering persistence. The process felt slow, but every step marked progress toward accountability. He checked his inbox repeatedly, hoping to see confirmation of content removal. Relief remained distant, replaced by cautious determination and silent endurance. Marcus knew this was not only about him, but about setting a line of consequence. The world had changed, yet he chose to stand firm in his truth. He would not allow betrayal to rewrite his sense of worth. Every document signed felt like reclaiming a piece of his stolen voice. The path ahead was uncertain, but his purpose was now clear and unshaken. Justice was no longer optional, but a necessity he would pursue relentlessly. Messages began spreading online, with Olivia presenting herself as misunderstood and unfairly attacked by Marcus. She posted emotional videos, framing her actions as a desperate mistake, fueled by financial hardship and fear. Her family shared the narrative, insisting Marcus was cold, unforgiving, and driven by bitterness alone. Strangers flooded his accounts with accusations that he was ruining her life for revenge. Each comment carved deeper into his already fragile sense of safety and trust. Marcus watched lies gain sympathy, while his truth drowned beneath waves of manipulation. He received messages urging him to drop the charges and show compassion instead. Olivia's friends reshaped the story until he seemed like the villain of their narrative. The pressure grew heavier with every new post and shared clip. Marcus felt isolated as familiar faces questioned his version of events. He tried to remain silent, yet the injustice burned within him constantly. Public opinion twisted reality into something almost unrecognizable and cruel. Olivia accused him of exaggerating and exploiting the situation for attention. Her words painted him as controlling and vindictive, without evidence or remorse. Marcus struggled to defend himself without exposing more of his dignity. He feared every response might fuel their distorted story even further. Late at night, doubt crept in despite knowing the undeniable truth. He wondered how easily a victim could become a target of public cruelty. The emotional pressure felt like an invisible hand tightening around his chest. Friends advised him to stay strong and ignore the noise surrounding his name. Yet the constant scrutiny made every quiet moment feel impossible. Marcus questioned how many people had already judged him without hearing his voice. Olivia sent private messages, urging him to settle and avoid more damage. Her words blended apology with subtle threats and emotional manipulation. She claimed continuing the case would destroy them both beyond repair. Marcus recognized the tactic, but still felt the weight of her influence. He blocked her attempts, refusing to surrender control of his narrative. The storm online grew louder as rumors multiplied without restraint. He realized silence would no longer protect his peace or integrity. Marcus chose to stand firm, even as backlash intensified. His resolve remained his only shield against the growing hostility. He reminded himself that justice required courage and unyielding patience. Despite the pressure, he refused to withdraw his statement. The truth was his anchor in a sea of deception and false sympathy. He understood that manipulation thrived on fear and emotional fatigue. Marcus knew this phase was designed to break his determination. Instead, it strengthened his awareness and hardened his focus. He would not allow their narrative to erase his experience. And through the noise, his silence transformed into quiet defiance. Federal investigators expanded the case and began tracing patterns beyond Marcus and Olivia alone. New evidence revealed encrypted folders linked to other names and hidden accounts. Agents discovered similar complaints from men who once shared relationships with Olivia. Their stories echoed the same violation and shock Marcus had endured. Each testimony strengthened the case with undeniable consistency and disturbing detail. The investigation uncovered a coordinated system far more calculated than impulsive behavior. Olivia had documented private moments with precision and intention over years. Financial records exposed repeated profits from unauthorized private content distribution. Marcus struggled to process that he was one of many victims in her scheme. The scope of betrayal widened into something darker and deeply unsettling. Interviews were conducted quietly to protect the dignity of other affected men. Their shared pain formed a silent brotherhood bound by exploitation. Law enforcement collected digital traces stretching across multiple platforms and timelines. Each discovery deepened the seriousness of the charges against Olivia. Patterns revealed her repeated use of emotional manipulation to gain trust. Marcus listened as investigators explained the full extent of her actions. The realization left him nauseous, yet strangely validated. He was no longer alone in his suffering and confusion. What once felt personal now appeared part of a larger threat. Marcus felt a duty to stand strong for those still afraid to speak. The case transformed into a mission for accountability and awareness. He began to see his fight as more than personal justice. Legal teams intensified their efforts with renewed purpose and urgency. New victims stepped forward, inspired by Marcus's courage and resolve. Little by little, the truth dismantled Olivia's false public image. Each revelation weakened her defense and strengthened the case. Marcus watched the investigation unfold with equal fear and strength. The weight of the situation pressed on his exhausted mind. Yet clarity replaced doubt as justice slowly took form. Every update confirmed the reality of her calculated manipulation. He understood the importance of seeing this through to the end. The process became a path toward healing through truth. Marcus held on to hope despite the emotional strain. He realized that accountability would bring long overdue closure. And in that knowledge, his determination stood unbroken. The courtroom air felt heavy as Marcus walked in with a steady, but wounded sense of quiet determination. He avoided Olivia's gaze, knowing every glance carried years of broken trust and silent rage. Her legal team proposed a settlement, offering lighter consequences and reduced public exposure. Marcus listened without interruption, but his heart remained fixed on full accountability and truth. He rejected the offer calmly, stating that justice could not be negotiated or softened. The trial commenced with witnesses describing the emotional and psychological damage caused. Each testimony echoed the same pattern of manipulation and calculated betrayal. Marcus took the stand, speaking clearly despite the tremor hidden beneath his controlled voice. He described the moment his private life was stolen and turned into public currency. The room fell silent as his words painted a painful reality no one could ignore. Olivia's defense attempted to justify her actions as desperation and misunderstanding. Their arguments faded beneath the weight of undeniable evidence and consistent testimony. Financial records, digital trails, and expert analysis strengthened the prosecution's position. Marcus listened as the judge outlined the seriousness of her crimes without emotion. The verdict was delivered after hours that felt like stretched eternity. Olivia was found guilty on multiple counts of privacy violation and exploitation. Gasps filled the room as the sentencing phase began. The judge spoke firmly, emphasizing the irreversible harm caused by her actions. A lengthy prison sentence and heavy financial restitution were imposed without mercy. Marcus felt no joy, only a somber relief that justice had finally spoken. Olivia's expression shifted from defiance to silent realization of her consequences. The courtroom doors closed, marking the end of a painful chapter. Marcus stepped outside, breathing air that felt strangely unfamiliar yet freeing. The fight had drained him, but his dignity remained intact. He knew the verdict would not erase the scars left behind. Yet accountability had restored a sense of order to the chaos. Marcus walked away, knowing his voice had not been silenced. And in that quiet moment, justice finally felt real. Marcus returned home to a silence that felt heavier than any noise he had faced before. The legal victory brought little comfort to the storm still echoing inside his thoughts. He struggled to sleep as memories replayed like broken scenes on endless repeat. Every unexpected sound made his heart tense with quiet fear. He realized healing was not instant, but a slow and demanding process. Marcus sought therapy to navigate the emotional wreckage left behind. Each session forced him to confront pain he tried to bury deep. His therapist guided him toward understanding rather than denial. He learned that trauma changes rhythm, trust, and even self-perception. Some mornings felt hopeful, while others drowned in silent exhaustion. He questioned his worth, though he knew the betrayal was never his fault. Time moved differently, stretching and folding around his fragile stability. Marcus avoided mirrors, unsure of the man staring back at him. Friends offered support, yet he felt distant from familiar comfort. He began small routines to reclaim control and restore normalcy. Simple walks became moments of quiet reflection and slow renewal. He practiced breathing through waves of anxiety and sudden despair. Progress felt invisible but persistent in its careful advance. Marcus discovered strength in choosing patience over bitterness. He allowed himself to grieve without shame or rushing limit. Each night, he wrote thoughts to untangle pain from identity. The ink became his witness and silent companion to healing. He gradually accepted that vulnerability was not weakness, but courage. Trust would take time, yet it was not permanently lost. Marcus started rediscovering joy in moments once forgotten. Laughter felt strange, but welcomed like gentle sunlight after rain. He learned to forgive himself for not seeing the signs sooner. Healing taught him respect for his own boundaries and needs. He chose growth over resentment and clarity over confusion. Every day became a small step toward stability and peace. Marcus understood scars would remain, but no longer define him. He stepped forward slowly, guided by resilience and inner strength. The past no longer controlled his ability to hope. And with time, his spirit began to breathe freely again. Marcus stood beneath the open sky and felt a quiet sense of peace settle over his restless heart. The painful journey had reshaped his soul and taught him the true meaning of personal strength. He understood that survival also meant choosing dignity over silence and courage over fear. Every scar now told a story of resilience rather than shame or defeat. He learned that justice is not revenge, but the restoration of truth and self-respect. Marcus carried forward a message of awareness and unwavering self-protection. He knew his voice might guide others through their own darkest moments. The past no longer ruled his future or whispered commands into his mind. He embraced the freedom earned through pain, honesty, and quiet determination. Trust would return slowly, but it would be built on earned respect this time. His journey became a reminder that boundaries exist for a sacred reason. The world felt unfamiliar, yet hopeful in its gentle certainty. And as he walked ahead, Marcus chose life guided by strength and truth.